Somatic therapy is a form of body-oriented therapy that focuses on the connection between the mind and the body to promote healing and emotional well-being. It emphasizes awareness of physical sensations, breath work, movement, and touch to help individuals release stored tension and trauma. This approach is often used to treat issues such as anxiety, trauma, stress, and emotional regulation difficulties. Throughout the summer season, we are going to be focusing on the different techniques of somatic or body healing. And lucky for you, if you're interested in joining the Esoteric Academy right now, we are running a special. If you use my name, Brice, B-R-I-C-E 20, all caps, Brice 20 at checkout, you can get 20% off your first 6 months of tuition at the Esoteric Academy. On top of that, you also get the first 7 days for free to try out the Academy to see if you like it. Mental, spiritual, and physical health is just one click away, and we look forward to working with you and welcoming you to the Esoteric Academy. All information is down in the description box below. Okay, everybody. Hello, hello. I am coming at you. My mother, thank God I'm 42 years old because my mother would probably ground me right now if I wasn't 42 for being on the internet with no makeup and I just got out of the shower. But when you get into your 40s, you just don't care anymore. There was a time where I was taught to not even go to the Piggly Wiggly without lipstick on or mascara, but thus, this is the time we're in. And so here we are. Of course, my name is Brice. If you're new here, I'm sitting on my bed right now. Again, I am waiting for my boyfriend because we're about to settle in for the night and we have an early morning tomorrow. So, this is kind of an impromptu video. First of all, thank you so much again to everybody who has lended their support for the Ashtanga problem that we have going on right now. It's really hard. You know, one thing I've learned in these past 5 years, well, maybe more than 5 years, but really this past 5 years, is I never realized like how many grown-ups were cowards. It's sad. Like the mass majority of grown-ups are cowards. You know, like you think like we always ask these questions like how come the Yahtzees, for example, can't say the real word, but how come on YouTube, how come the Yahtzees were able to do what they did? Well, now we know. Because most grown-ups are just scared little wussy cowards. Most grown-ups talk a big talk, but they don't walk the walk. Most grown-ups are the complete opposite of a hero. Most grown-ups don't have morals. Most grown-ups are selfish. And I think that I just definitely learned that in 2020. But seeing how many people in the Ashtanga world, people I used to respect, which I don't respect anymore, have tried to like manipulate and silence like my boyfriend and myself for speaking up is freaking crazy. Like certified teachers, not the old school, none of the old school certified teachers, but some of these newer ones. Like, who gives a shit like if you know all the things to say? Who cares if you can do fourth series if you're nothing but a coward? You think it's brave doing fourth series? No. What's brave is speaking up when it's uncomfortable. And if yoga hasn't taught you that, if yoga hasn't taught you to do the right thing, then you have nothing to teach anyone. You're not an advanced practitioner, you're a beginner. And that's my opinion. But beyond that, so many people have reached out in support. And I think people who aren't even in Ashtanga have reached out in support. And I'm really excited. I really hope to work with more cult survivors
with this unfolding in the Ashtanga world, so that we can try to save as many people as we can or wake people up, because this is textbook of what happens. No matter what community is, it's always the same playbook. It's the same. Narcissists use the same playbook. So anyway, so I thank you guys for that, and we will definitely keep you posted, up to date. But speaking of cults, you guys, I just watched a 7-part docu-series on YouTube. And I'm so bummed. Let me see. This was so impromptu. Let me see if I can pull it up for you guys. It's really fascinating. It is about blah, 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 blah. It is about Soul Cycle. Soul Cycle. So let me take you to this person. Oops. All right, let me go to this person's channel so I can show you guys. I just subscribed to this person. Ignore her last name. I know I'm going to get a lot of people talking about her last name. But she's got these great deep dives, and I just watched like all the Soul Cycle ones. And so I want to kind of talk to you guys about it. I'm going to tag it down below. I'll tag episode 1. Do you guys remember Soul Cycle? Maybe you watching participated in Soul Cycle. I remember it. Like I remember when it came to Atlanta. I remember when it was everywhere. And I had friends in Ashtanga who were always curious to try it, but we never did it. The reason why we never did it, you guys, this is when I was in the really like in the height of my Ashtanga practice, like when I was really accelerating. Um, and I remember talking about it, and they do talk about this in the documentary, which is interesting. So when you're cycling, the way your psoas muscle works, it tightens up because of the way that you're sitting on the bike. And when you're in Ashtanga, you need your psoas muscle to be like really mobile. And so we kind of never did this soul cycle classes because we just didn't want it to interfere with the trajectory we were on with Ashtanga, which happens a lot, right? Especially if you look at sports in general. Now, if you take the spirituality out of it, a lot of athletes stick to certain modalities because it strengthens their sport. And other modalities will weaken their sport, even though both modalities are good. It just, different body patterning, all that kind of stuff. You guys get it. You're smart. But Soul Cycle was like this huge phenomenon, and it was based off of spinning. Now, it's interesting when you watch the documentary. I have done spinning long before I ever practiced yoga. I took a spinning class back in the 90s, the late 90s, with my mother. And it was the same thing. It was in a dark room with different lights, what we would now call light therapy, which I'm going to get into in a minute. And it was back when I was a runner, and I just did it one time with my mom when the spinning craze was all over the world. And that was the only class I ever did because I was a runner. Then I went to school, started practicing yoga, all that kind of stuff. But I do remember when the spinning got big in the 90s, and that kind of morphed into different offshoots of spinning, which Soul Cycle was one of these offshoots. Now, what was fascinating, and this is why I thought I would have a conversation about this, because I find human psychology, physiology, everything like that, I find it so fascinating, as y'all know. What is interesting is one of the main teachers from Soul Cycle is a woman named Janet Fitzgerald, and they follow her a lot throughout, and they interview her a lot in these 7 episode documentaries. She was from Los Angeles, if I remember correctly. She had been a dancer. She had gone through some mental health issues. She had been with this like Christian evangelical. She was living in Palm Springs, going back and forth to Los Angeles, really getting back into to working out. She'd had some addiction issues, which a lot of people who go through that end up in exercise. She found the spinning, blah, blah, blah. In a lot of ways, she kind of reinvented the wheel. And this is my perception. This is not things that she said, but she kind of realized and I've watched this docu-series a few times now, that there's a spiritual experience when you work out. And that's why I say she kind of reinvented the wheel, because yeah, India has been saying that for like 5,000 years. That there's a spiritual experience with exercise. Like this is not new information, right? And so she kind of cultivated this template of spinning that really hooked people because of the experience of the class, the journey of the class. Again, they dim the lights, they use different light color, which is color therapy. They play particular music, and it kind of sells this emotional story. Off and on throughout this 7-part docu-series, they do kind of talk about like different teachers being yoga teachers. I'm just going to clear that up right now. Like the yoga people they're talking about are vinyasa flow people, and vinyasa flow is not yoga. In defense of India, it's not yoga. So these were people who got big stretching classes, we'll say. They weren't really, some of the vocabulary they used around yoga, you could definitely tell it wasn't real yoga. But nonetheless, they've created this what throughout the 7-part docu-series, I actually took more good away from it than bad away from it. Um, didn't really like when they got into politics, all that kind of stuff, but whatever. You guys know I'm cool with like watching whatever, but they talked about how these three women started SoulCycle, soul as in your soul, and cycle for bicycling. And they started in New York with one class, and it just got very popular. They were genius at marketing, the way that they made kind of selling it like it's limited seats, limited spaces, all that kind of stuff, and like really good at marketing it. And the way that this girl Janet had like created her classes really kind of sold. She ended up kind of taking over the training because it gave people an experience. Now, what was interesting is these all of the instructors, they go through the beginning bit where they all kind of seem to have like, they go into, again, addiction issues. A lot of these teachers end up kind of burning the candle at both ends. And I'm thinking, huh, that's interesting. Because a lot of what Janet is doing with her cycling classes is what I have done. Back in 2016, as many of you guys know, I broke my sacrum. And so I had to start incorporating other forms of movement to heal my sacrum. And one of the modalities that I used to try to heal my sacrum was bar, Barre, as in ballet, like the ballet bar. So a lot of like dance-based therapies I used in the bar tucks really, really helped, when you're in that deep work at the bar. It's very deep muscular work, and so there's a deep burn. It really strengthens smaller parts of the body that really support the skeletal system. And so bar gave me a lot of liberation. It healed my body in a lot of ways. And after I had recovered into my late 30s, early 40s, once again my yoga practice took off leaps and bounds. It was moving forward. I got injured, cured the injury through bar, and then my practice jumped even further forward because through the injury, I had trained my body in a new way. So, with that being said, that injury ended up being such a godsend because I started to incorporate a lot of the bar teachings into like workshops, and I started to really study other forms of modality to figure out how these different exercises, the physiology of the sports medicine, if you will, how could it support the overall growth of yoga asana or yoga posture. And I ended up creating this course called The Alchemy of Movement, which we do have on the Esoteric Academy that I teach in person now, where I try to really teach students like all forms of exercise are spirituality. Every time you move your body, you're having a spiritual experience. But with that being said, different exercises are going to create different reactions in the body, which are also going to mimic different reactions spiritually. And so you have to understand it's just like when we put together, like when we're baking cookies, right? We don't want to put both green beans and cookies. These are both food, right? They both have some nutrients in it. I don't know how much about the cookie, but there is some nutrients there. But you're not going to take green beans and put them in the cookie, right? It's not going to work. And so when we're building a recipe for food, we also need to figure out a recipe for our body. And it's going to be very different for people at different stages of their life. And so I created this Alchemy of Movement course where we talk about what is happening when you're in cardiovascular or aerobic work. What is happening when you're in anaerobic work? What is happening when you're in isometric hold? There's all these different things that happen, how the body's physiology reacts to the movement. It's going to create a different reaction for the body, and the body is the Shakti of the soul. So it's going to create a different reaction of the soul. And sometimes this also depends on things like cortisol levels. Like if your cortisol level is spiked, you probably don't want to be doing a lot of cardiovascular. You probably want to be doing more anaerobic work or without oxygen in order to calm down the cortisol levels, right? So there's different things in different stages of life. And so With that being said, what Janet Fitzgerald at SoulCycle was doing is kind of what like I do in my fusion classes, live and on the academy, where I do different workouts that aren't specifically yoga, but are taking the yoga philosophy, right? We're taking that journey of the soul through the expression of movement. Now, with that being said, I was thinking, watching this docuseries, and I'm like, why are all of these instructors becoming teachers, teaching like 4 classes a day, and ending up in rehab for addictions? What's going on? Like, if this is a spiritual practice, why is this happening? So I got on YouTube and I actually watched a full soul cycling class on YouTube and I figured out why. I know why. I know why. They've got everything needed to have a full, complete journey of spiritual practice in a class, except for they're missing one element. That's the integration at the end. They're not integrating. So what do I mean by this? So I hope by saying this will inspire people or help you understand more about what's happening when you do your exercises, either with me or with someone else, doesn't matter. So let's take my Wednesday classes, for example. Well, first of all, with the bar fusion classes, I use music. I don't use music in Ashtanga. Traditional yoga doesn't call for music because we want to keep the count. Ekam Dwe, Trini Chatwari, punches shot. Like it's different. Yeah. So I'm just talking about this modern sensation of bar fusion or like kind of how they do it in SoulCycle. So the first thing I'm looking for when I create my playlist is I'm looking for BPMs or beats per minute. This is going to change depending on where we are in the practice. So the first song, 2 songs, 2.5 songs is kind of like the initiation of practice or the warm up. I like calling it the initiation. It takes about 7 to 10 minutes for the body and the mind to flip from warming up. The beginning is always the hardest, getting the mind in that active meditation for then the body to be in the practice and the mind in the practice. And if you ever notice that, like if you're an exerciser, if you're a worker outer, watch yourself. The first like 7 to 10 minutes are the hardest part. After you've been on the treadmill for 10 minutes or in the class for 10 minutes or lifting for 10 minutes, after you pass that 10-minute mark, it probably gets a lot easier because you're in it. You're initiated. The fire has been lit. So with that being said, for me, when I do my bar classes, the first song is going to be a slower BPM than the second song. It's not going to be a slow song, but it's going to be a gentler one because that's where we're just shaking the body out. We're warming the joints up. We're pointing our toes, rolling our ankles, stretching through our ribs. That's the first song, okay? The second song is going to have some of the second and third song, highest BPM, because that's when we're doing the small section of cardiovascular work. So, sorry, my boyfriend came in. Where was I? Okay, so the second song. So the second song is a higher BPM because that's when we're going to do a little bit of cardio. And so through all my research, if we can do about 7 minutes of cardio after the first like 3 minutes warming up the body, that's about all you really need to get your heart rate up, to get your blood pumping, so that then we can start to stabilize the body to get into the deep anaerobic work. So that's a higher BPM. I want the song to be peppy, upbeat, because we're trying to get your energy up. When you're doing cardio work, your body is using oxygen to create the fuel because it's what you're asking your body to do. And so then we get to the third song about halfway through, and then we're going to start to kind of combined anaerobic with cardio, a lot of squats, stuff like that. Then the fourth, fifth song, we use very light hand weights, like 2 pounds, 3 pounds. And this is literally just doing things to trigger your back muscles more than anything. If my students are watching, surprise, surprise, it's not your arms. Your arms are working too. We're toning your arms as well. But what I'm trying to do is get your rhomboids and your lats really active. And the reason why I'm targeting those specifically is because we're going to be moving to the bar after this, or the wall. And I need to make sure that when we get into the deep anaerobic work, that your spine is supported and that you're going to stand up straight. You're not going to hunch over. So that is why I have that section next. And then after that, we might do a brief stretch. We move now to the ballet bar or the wall. Where I teach doesn't have the ballet bar, so we use the wall. It's just to lightly place your hand to make sure again that you're standing up straight. And this is where the real work of bar starts to really begins. This is when it gets really hard. The cardio's done, you're already nice and hot and sweaty, you're awake, you're warm. At this point, we're coming up on releve to the balls of our feet, and we're putting a block or a ball in between your thighs. Then we're having you bend your knees and squat, but standing up straight, not hunching over. And you start to squeeze that block and you start those pulses. And when you see somebody doing this, this looks really simple. But when you get into this work, it is some of the hardest, most challenging work you will do. It burns, it's deep anaerobic work. So the anaerobic work is without oxygen. So your body is burning glucose, so stored sugar, fat. In spirituality, that's stored thoughts because your thoughts creates the matter. So that's when a lot of emotions come up. That's when a lot of frustration comes up. The body starts to shake more. Funnily enough, a lot of people think you need aerobic work to lose weight. You need anaerobic work. Yeah, cardiovascular is going to give you a big calorie burn, but it's empty calories. You're going to be starving an hour or two later. Anaerobic work is what's going to calm the nervous system down, but also give you a deep burn. That's where the toning comes, as people get real toned doing anaerobic work, like dancers, yoga people. And so we work with that. We come down, do some plank stuff. We start to come down that mountain. We do basic core stuff, and then we do like psoas stretching, which is like glute bridges. And then we have a cool down and then an integration, right? And so with SoulCycle, they're coming up, hitting that climax, coming a little bit down, and then ending the class. And so, what people need to understand about using exercise as a spirit. So, using exercise, and exercise is the foundation of spirituality. I love the fact that they call it SoulCycle. I think their idea is genius. I think that they really hit on something very, very important. And that's probably why they were so successful, but they missed the end bit. And I think that's why a lot of their teachers, because their teachers were writing like 4 classes a day. So, it's crazy making, right? So, when you are in the actual physical exercise, that's not where the healing is happening. When you are in the exercise, your body is ripping itself apart. You're burning. It's like this wrecking ball is coming in and ripping the muscle up. Blood is flowing in like crazy, right? That's when the body is in destruction. It's after the exercise when the healing starts to happen, when things start to rebuild. However, to support that healing, we need integration. We need a cool down. We need a moment of rest, at least 2 to 3 minutes of rest to allow the body to integrate all the work that you've just done to integrate. Now, spiritually speaking, in the workouts, most of the spiritual aspects of the workout or the practice are happening mentally. Mentally, when you're facing something really hard and uncomfortable and your mind is going, I can't. Oh my God, this hurts. I can't. But you stay, that's when there's a spiritual evolution. I hope that makes sense. So, what was happening in these SoulCycle classes, from what I can see, from my professional opinion, as they're going on this journey, they're saying all the right things. It's becoming like church. It's like SoulCycle church. They're going, their adrenaline's pumping, their cortisol levels are spiked, which they're going to spike a little bit and work out. And then they come to the end and they're not integrating. And so they're all excited. Their adrenaline's pumping when they get off the bike and they go about their day and they haven't taken time to actually integrate. A lot of these people spoke about when they started doing SoulCycle, they would still be buzzing for like hours after the class. And it's because they did not take time to allow integration, cool down and integration, which yoga does that beautifully. All lineages of yoga do that. The resting posture at the end, it's not called Shavasana. Stop calling it Shavasana. That's not correct. It's called Sukhasana at the end where you lay down. That's the integration. So you've got this fight or flight response. You've got this adrenaline spike, and you're going about your day in New York City, which is already very vata and very, wild anyway. And it's going to lead to a crash out. So, of course, these people start turning to substances and alcohol because they're trying to like filter this chaotic energy that was created in the class and not not closed properly, if that makes sense. But all in all, I think it was a genius template. Like, bravo to her for figuring this out, even though the last bit was missing. Bravo. And no wonder so many people liked it and felt drawn to it because it brought exercise back to where exercise should be, and that's a spiritual experience. I love the light therapy. That's something that I really want to work with. We're starting to work with a little bit with that when we film for Esoteric Academy. So, like using red light for fiery cardio, using a blue light for like more anaerobic work. Different lights create different energies. That's why the chakras have different colors. So we are starting to work with this filming wise. If I owned a studio where I could do like body fusion, I wouldn't do this in Ashtanga. Ashtanga is a totally different thing. This would not work with Ashtanga. But if I were to do like a body fusion class, a bar fusion class in my own studio, I would absolutely do the same thing that SoulCycle did. Darken the lights and only have particular lights going that match the energy of what's happening in that particular journey of the class. So that's if I had my own like bar fusion studios, that's what I would do. Exactly like what they did, except for we would integrate at the end. So, so, but anyway, regardless, I love that. I loved also they talked about when the original three ladies were starting the company, they really took care of their employees. And I love that. They paid their employees really well. Some of those, from what I understood from this docu-series, some of those teachers were making $200 to $300 a class, teaching like 4 classes a day. That's 1,200 a day, if my math's right, in New York. And most of these people were teaching like 4 or 5 times a week, some 6 times a week. I love that. Unfortunately, yoga studios can't pay that because yoga studios don't make that much. In New York, they're willing to pay like $40 a class, a drop in, right? And all their classes are full, so they can afford to pay their teachers a really fair amount. But if I owned a studio that was as popular as SoulCycle, I absolutely 100% would pay my teachers the same way because your teachers are your brand. No matter, and I think most studio owners anyway get that. Like your teachers, your employees basically are your company, especially with something like this. Your clients are not coming to see you, the owner. They're coming to see their favorite teacher. Yeah, they're following their favorite teacher. So you wouldn't have a business without the teacher. So I really respected the original women for really giving them health insurance, giving them everything they needed to really be able to focus solely on being soul cycle instructors and not have to have a second job. I've complained about that with the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders. If you allow your employees to be able to solely focus on what they're doing, you're going to have a really good business. And if your employees love working for you, if you want happy clients, have happy employees. They talked about how the retail at SoulCycle was really expensive, but they would give their employees a stipend. So their employees got free clothes because they wanted their employees to wear SoulCycle clothes. So they gave them to them for free, right? Perfect. Amazing. Then the owners sold out to Equinox Gym. And I don't blame them because I think they each got like $90 million. And trust me, like if I created something like that and somebody came along and said, "Hey, we're going to offer you 90 million to take over what you've created," I would probably sell. I think you would too. I mean, with 90 million, I could go to India and help tons of people in the slums, right? There's so much you could do with that money to help better the world. So I think when Equinox took over SoulCycle, though, that's when things started changing. Like they weren't paying their employees. Like they were taking in more of the profits for themselves and paying their employees less and less and less. They were not allowing their employees free clothing anymore, even though they wanted them to dress in SoulCycle merchandise, right? So that's when I think a lot of the issues started. And I'm sorry because I mean, if Equinox is watching this, like I know you're a huge company, you should probably treat your employees better. Just so you know, because here's the thing, like what you have to understand about teachers. If you find a good teacher that you love in whatever exercise you're doing, students will follow that teacher anywhere. So like my teacher, I don't care where my teacher is teaching. I just want to practice with my teacher. I'll go practice in a garage with my teacher if that's where he's teaching. Doesn't matter how nice the facility is, it's the teacher. And so that's what I think these big gyms need to like realize is that if your employee walks out and leaves, their clients are following them. They're not going to stick around, right? So, anyway, they also talked about one thing I liked when the original owners owned SoulCycle, their clients, they referred to their clients as writers. How many writers do I have in my class today? Which I love that, like how many writers do I have in my class today? Those are human beings that are coming into cycle with you. They're writers. Well, once Equinox took over, they changed it to units. How many units are in your class? And a lot of the teachers said they had a problem with that because these are humans, they're not units. I have a problem with that too. My students are my students. They're human beings. They're not units. They're not numbers on a spreadsheet. I know it's a business and we know that business, we have to have the students in order to keep the doors open, but they're still human beings that are coming to you for a reason. They're not units, they're writers. They're your writers. One thing they talked about that they thought was, I think, kind of scandalous is that a lot of the teachers would block off the first row of bikes so that before, because they would have to pre-book their bikes, so before they got to their class, the teacher could assign certain students to the front row. That's not so scandalous to me. I understand this as a teacher, especially with the bar. Again, Ashtanga is different, Mysore is different, but with the fusion class, I get that. You need your room organized in a way that's going to help you teach the class the best way possible. So, like when you are teaching, and they talked about that with the teachers, that the teachers are also performers. And I get that, not again with Ashtanga, but with Bar Fusion, there is an element of you are an entertainer. You're there to coach people, to keep them motivated, to keep the energy up, whether you have 10 people in your class or 2 people in your class. You have, as a teacher, you have to keep the energy up. You have to be the one that's on it. If you're tired, who cares? Take a shot of an espresso and go in there and don't be tired anymore. If you're sad, turn it off. It's not about you in that class. You're the facilitator of the experience. So a lot of these, they called the original people called their instructors their talent. And I think that is very appropriate. But nonetheless, so when they were talking about, oh my God, they would block off the front row and then they would assign certain students to the bikes in the front. And I don't think that's so scandalous. So for me, when I'm teaching, depending on where students are set up, that is going to help flow the energy depending on the student's personality, depending on how long they've been doing this. And that is so the front row would be like a lot of writers that had been writing with this teacher for a long time. She would put in the front row. It just helps the flow of the class. Okay. So if you have someone brand new in the front row, it's going to slow the class down because the front row is carrying the energy. So if the front row person doesn't know what they're doing, it's going to block the energy. But if we have someone in the front row who has been doing this for a long time, they know what to expect, they know how to manage their own energy, it's going to keep the flow of energy. And so if someone's in the front row that I, as a teacher, don't have to worry about, so like with the bar fusion, I'll start each sequence in the front halfway demonstrating, then I go and walk around the room. Right, so that I can be available to all the students, so I can mostly keep the beat up for them, keep them moving, so that if I need to assist, I can assist. If I need to help someone stand up straighter or help someone with some footwork, I can be available. But if I have someone in the front row who knows what they're doing, they are holding that energy up while I'm able to move around to the students who are newer, so that they're watching the front row, but I'm also there supporting them as well. Right. And so I totally get that for the soul. It's not something that's scandalous. It literally, they are setting the room to make the class as best as possible. They know full well that if they put brand new writers in the front row, it's going to fuck the whole class up. And that's not the new writer's fault. Yeah, let's just be very clear about that. Everybody takes their first class at some point. Everybody's a beginner at some point. So we want to support the beginners in the best way possible while also supporting the rest of the class. And so by making sure that your more experienced students are booked in the front, that's going to ensure that experience for everyone. It's not, even for the more experienced writers, if they're in the back and a beginner's in the front, it's going to slow the more experienced writers down too, because they're perceiving what's in front of them, which is someone who doesn't know what they're doing. To me, that's common sense. Let me know if that's confusing to you, because maybe this is something I just know because I've been doing this for most of my life that is logical. It's not, this is nothing salacious. It has nothing to do with the teacher preferring the experienced students to the beginner students. It's literally about making sure the energy in the class is flowing appropriately so that every single person in the class is having the best experience they can have. Trying to think if there was anything else. I'm sure I'll remember some stuff. Um, they talked about how a lot of students get attached to certain teachers, and I absolutely get that. Um, and of course, they talked about their inappropriate relationships, which that should never happen. There should never be any inappropriate relationships between teachers and students and anything like that's crossing a line. One thing they mentioned was, especially in the beginning, a lot of the more popular teachers were the older ones, like 30s, 40s, early 50s. I get that too, right? The younger ones might have the energy, but the older ones have the life experience. And so in order to carry a class that's supposed to be spiritually heavy, we typically need a more seasoned person, right? That's why in Ashtanga, you see people that aren't teaching Ashtanga until they're in like their 30s or 40s because it takes that long to be authorized, first of all. And second of all, it's just life experience. Yeah. So anyway, I trying to think if there was anything else about that I thought was interesting. I'm going to tag it down below, the first episode 1, and then you can go and find episode 2. Watch it, let me know what you think because it was so fascinating to me. I was so fascinated by it. But again, I love talking about the body and talking about the mind and spirituality. So let me know what you guys think. And if there's any more questions that you have about the body and the mind and spirituality, let me know and we'll cover it deeper. We'll look into it deeper. I think SoulCycle does a really good job incorporating mind, body, and spirit. So anyway, again, thank you to all the support for all the Ashtanga. That means a lot to us. And also, make sure you use Bryce 20 at checkout for the Esoteric Academy to get 20% off your first 6 months with us. We've just uploaded 2 new workout videos, a 60-minute strength and conditioning class with me, and a 75-minute somatic slow flow class with me with a prolonged meditation with Paula at the end. We've just dropped our latest call with Cindy, my friend Cindy Ola, over somatic healing. And in this call, it's on the platform now. She gets into the elements like earth, water, fire, air, and how they work within the body and what it means to be spiritual, to be in the earth element of the body, all that kind of stuff. So that conversation is now up on the Academy. If you missed the live class, you can go back and watch the replay. She also offers a very special discount to our Academy members if they want to take her shaman course coming up this fall. So that's all over on the Academy too. I've also just today filmed a new 30-minute flush and punch class. And tomorrow morning, I am filming bright and early. I'm filming another 75-minute bar fusion, the same thing I was just talking to you guys about with the music. I'm filming a 75. I blocked it today. So I'm going to be filming that tomorrow morning before I head out of town so that I can edit that and send it over to you guys while I'm out of town. For this month, for the month of July, we usually do a live call, which we just did with Cindy. It was backed up a week because of the 4th of July holiday. So we just did the live call with Cindy. And for this week, the workshop class, which is usually with me, it's usually the exercise class with me, but for this month, it's going to be with Paula, and she's going to workshop you guys with quantum healing. So that link for our Academy members should be emailed out very, very soon. I'm meeting with Paula tomorrow so we can get some stuff hammered out. And if you are not in the academy and you really want to join us, once again, if you use Bryce20 at checkout, all caps, BRIC20 at checkout at the Esoteric Academy, you do get 20% off your first 6 months tuition with us. And on top of that, you get the first 7 days for free anyway. So you can always just sign up and try it for 7 days. And if you don't like it, you can cancel. And listen, those SoulCycle classes are like $40 a class, one drop-in class. You get the whole month of exercise classes with us for only $25. You get the whole month of exercise, of courses. It's a library that grows. They never go away. Everything for $40 a month. SoulCycle is $40 for one class. So it's a bargain what you're getting with us, and we're able to do that because it is online. We have unlimited seating, so we can offset the price that way. So anyway, you guys, yeah, we're gonna get back into the Cassiopeians. We've got a lot of exciting stuff coming forward. I am working deeper on this Ashtanga stuff, talking to more cult survivors, because this is really serious what's happening. It's very serious what's happening in the Ashtanga world. This could really lead. I mean, this is a David Koresh situation. This is textbook what happened with the Branch Davidians, and we don't want anybody getting hurt. We don't want anybody being hurt. We don't want anybody lying. We don't want anybody manipulating. And so we're trying the best we can to blow the whistle and to make sure that the lineage stays with the Joyce family where it should stay, where it's safe, where it's not a cult, where it's just a school. And so I thank you guys for your support. And Mom, I'm sorry if you're watching this and I don't have any makeup on and my hair is still wet. I apologize, but it is what it is. So don't be a coward. That's the mantra of this video. Don't be a coward. So many adults are cowards, and it's so embarrassing. I'm so, all these people that I've respected, and I just have no more respect for them. I'm like, I have nothing to learn from you guys. You're cowards. So wow, a legacy. That's the word I'm looking for. What a legacy to leave behind. You're a coward. At least I can say no one in my family is cowards. I don't come from cowards, and I'm not a coward. But most of my Ashtanga friends, what a bunch of cowards. So sad. If you don't want to be a coward and you want to speak up and do what's right, come on my channel. Help Mariela and I out and Todd out. And we will absolutely continue pushing forward and making sure that what is right and what is wrong. And regardless of what happens, at least we have blown the whistle. At least we have made it clear that this is scary before somebody gets hurt. So anyway, you guys, hope you have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you soon. Bye, everybody.